What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and this evening I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn. We're going to be breaking down the 49ers' ugly loss versus the Falcons. Before I toss it over to Matt, if you're tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Join from there so we can see and interact with your comments. We're not ignoring you. We just can't see it. Matt, that was unexpectedly ugly. What was your main takeaway from this loss in Atlanta?
It's a lot of things. I don't think the 49ers are built to handle getting down early in games. The team came out and looked really flat. And then towards the end of the game, they just looked like they didn't have the sense of urgency that you need down the points that they were down. Essentially, the Falcons were able to do to the 49ers what 49ers do to other teams, and that's control the clock and run the ball. And the 49ers weren't able to do that. They had to play catch up for much of the day, and a lot of that was errors and mistakes. A lot of that was a bit of a thinning on the defense where, you know, your heavy hitters aren't there, and Atlanta took advantage of that. And, you know, once you get down, it's hard to catch up. So that played a huge role in what was going on. And Ace Press says injuries lost us that game. They played a role, but there was a lot of blame to go around.
It was very, very unfortunate. I think they went into the game with like 6 defensive starters, 7 maybe, already out. And on the first drive, they lose Hufanga, Ebukam. I swear, there must have been a record for how many times Samson Ebukam hopped off and limped off and then came back on and limped off and came back on. Mike McGlinchey got hurt. It's almost laughable at this point. Travarius Ward ended up not finishing the game due to groin tightness. Maybe this is due to the turf. Maybe it's not. But, Matt, the 49ers just seem to get injured.
It's not.
Yeah, they get injured at a much higher rate than any other team. Medically speaking, this can't just be like coincidence, right? Like they're doing something that other teams aren't, I would imagine.
I just think they're not working as hard. I think they're playing it extra safe. You know, every other team that you hear about is skirting the line, right? How many times have we heard, oh, the Cowboys got fined for going too hard in practice, or the Broncos got fined for going, the 49ers, it just seems to be very much an operation where they don't really go super hard in practice. A lot of the we've talked about it, like how many times did these players not play, like Bosa and Kittle and stuff, they're not even playing in the preseason. So you're asking these players to build that callus that you need for football, right? Traditionally, that's always been there. And it's no coincidence that with the Shanahan era, the 49ers have been one of the most injured teams in the NFL. And a lot of those season-ending and major injuries happen early on in the season, right? Down the stretch, it seems like those injuries kind of taper off for this team every single year. I mean, look at just this season, Trey Lance, week 2, Elijah Mitchell, week 1. You look at, Nick Bosa, week 4, right? Week 4, week 5 or whatever came into the game with tight. Trent Williams, week 3, I believe. A lot of these injuries are happening super early. So there's something going on. And I think that it's a matter of you need to do a better job of either keeping your players in shape or changing your offseason program so that they're doing something that's more effective. Because what's going on right now isn't working. And if people remember a couple of years ago, we all sat around here worried about the injuries, and we were like, okay, what can they do? They got to get rid of the strength and conditioning staff because it's not working. And they cleaned house and got rid of it. Nothing has changed, which means it's not the strength and conditioning team. It's how they're going about business on the football field. And so there has to be some accountability held there for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the way that they run these practices, because the injuries are out of control.
Yeah, man. Mark Uyami. I remember all the players loved him, and the fans wanted this guy's head on a stick because they were dead set that it was Uyami's fault that these players were getting hurt at such a high rate. Fox NFL put this tweet out, I believe, on Sunday, and it's their banged up score, Dr. Matt Proventure's banged up score through week 5. This is going into Sunday's game. So the 49ers got even more hurt. And would you look at that? Number 32, worst of all of the league, the 49ers at a 60.4 banged up score. And this quantifies how injuries affect the overall team position and player performance on a scale of 0 to 100. Matt, my only question for you is only 2.3 points higher is the Giants, and they're 5-1, whatever the hell they are. How are they able to overcome injuries, but the 49ers simply aren't? Is it just the players that are
Well, I mean, honestly, this is so subjective. I don't want to really put a lot into this. It's a cool chart to like throw up, but I don't know this doctor at all. I don't know what it's a lot like PFF grades, right? Like, what do they put into the metric? This is all fine and dandy. We already know that the 49ers are one of the most injured teams in the NFL. I can't really say why one is winning and the other is not. You just have to look at externalities and other things outside of the injuries. So fact of the matter is the 49ers have lost a couple of games against opponents. Really, all of their losses were very beatable opponents and games that they had every right to win, but just didn't pull it out.
I mean, arguably, their 3 losses against Denver, Chicago, and Atlanta. It's very well possible that the season ends, none of those 3 teams make the playoffs. So we'll see. I mean, again,
it's actually very likely that that's the case.
Yeah, I'd argue likely as well. It is unfortunate the 49ers continue to struggle against mobile quarterbacks. Did that surprise you at all to see that trend continue against Marcus Mariota?
Not with the way the defensive line has been banged up. And again, like you said, Ebukam injured. I think Drake Jackson was shook up for a little bit before he was able to come back and get a sack. Just, when you're missing your heavy hitters and you start getting down into that depth, I don't care who you are, at the end of the day, it's hard to overcome a lot of those injuries, particularly because, some of the players that are playing aren't playing as well as they could. And unfortunately, that sometimes that's some big money players, and that's kind of disappointing to see.
Thinks you're hinting at a certain tight end, maybe. I don't know.
Actually, on the other side of the ball. I'm hinting at a certain linebacker who hasn't shown any growth in coverage skills.
Freddie.
I love Fred, but he needs to get a lot better and show a lot better than he's shown.
I agree. It seems like since I hate to say it, but since he got the contract, he's plateaued, and the 49ers certainly need him to keep ascending. Maybe not forever ascending, but you weren't at the best you could be when the 49ers
it's not even
contract.
Plateaued, though. His play has actually declined since he got paid. His coverage has been bad, and I saw multiple times where he was sitting in zone coverage where he just like dropped lower in the zone than he was supposed to be, and a guy got behind him and he wasn't fast enough to react to the situation. And it's not good. It's not good. And I don't want to put it at the feet of one guy, but it's like when you're a leader of the team, when you're one of the most talented people, the high tide has to raise all boats. And right now, Fred Warner is, leaking tide all over the beach. So he's not making other players better. And that's a problem. You can see it clearly when Nick Bosa is out there. Nick Bosa makes other people better. When Trent Williams is out there, Trent makes other people better, and I just don't think that Fred is doing that right now.
Yeah, I agree. Ian Sharp says they need Azeez back. How much of that do you think it was? He just got really comfortable with Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shaair playing at a relatively high level next to him. Maybe he felt, I don't have to go above and beyond because I got a really good surrounding. Well, now Azeez is gone. Dre is still there, but now Demetrius Flanagan-Foles is there. So it's not like it's a great trio like it was entering the year.
I would hope that's not the case. Looking at 49er linebacker greats, I don't think that Patrick Willis gave a crap how good Navarro Bowman was. Patrick Willis is going to go out there and do his job every day. And so when you're, it's do you have that killer instinct in you? Do you have that desire to just be hyper competitive and go out there and just run your opponent into the ground every single week? If that was the mindset, I'm not saying it is, but if the mindset of Fred Warner was, well, Aziz and Dre are playing really good so I can let my foot off the gas, then that's not the type of player that needs to be commanding, the second or third highest paid linebacker in the NFL.
I agree. I mean, and when I suggested it, maybe it's not intentional, but it's possible that it's just happening because he feels that way kind of, I don't know, deep in his head. But hopefully he's able to kind of get it back because they desperately need him. If he's the captain and the leader of that defense, right now more than ever, you need to step it up. And just going back to Sunday, if I told you going into Sunday, 10 a.m., I hate these 10 a.m. games, that Marcus Mariota would throw 14 times for under 130 yards, and their leading rusher would have 59 yards, leading receiver would have 58 yards. Would you think there's any way in hell they win this game, Matt?
I mean, probably not. But when you look at it, yeah, their leading rusher was 59 yards. But at the same time, the Falcons as a team had 168 yards rushing. So between Algiers, Huntley, and Marcus Mariota, those three each had over 50 yards. And Mariota only threw the ball 14 times, but he had 13 completions with 2 touchdowns. So there's a problem there. And by the way, it's bad. It's tough when the team doesn't keep control of the ball. They lost this turnover battle 3-0. 3-0. One was on a fumble from Jeff Wilson Jr., who's back to being exactly who I thought he was after a couple of good weeks. That fumble really hurt. I also, by the way, George, you should know the rules of football. That fumble did not go out of bounds, so you shouldn't be calling for a touchback when it was clearly a touchdown, dude. And then, Jimmy Garoppolo. I know a lot of people are giving him a pass on the late throw down the sideline that was essentially a punt. But if you're telling me that's the only way they could get into a field goal range, like, I don't think so. And the second throw is just like, does this dude ever throw a ball away? Does this dude ever work through his progressions? Like, that was a horrendous pick. I know it was tipped up in the air, but it was 3 feet high. And, these are the same Jimmy Garoppolo stands that'll kill Trey Lance for throwing a ball high. Like, Jimmy was forcing balls. And the Falcons did what prior teams could not, including the Carolina Panthers and some others, where Jimmy Garoppolo will throw interceptable passes and you just got to catch them. The Falcons were able to do that where others couldn't.
It really isn't
really bad. Sorry, I think it's really bad, though, when you look at Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball 41 times and the 49ers run the ball, I believe, 16 times. And this, by the way, I saw this earlier. I was going to send this to you. Jimmy Garoppolo did not throw the ball past the line of scrimmage to his left at all. And it's a weird, we'll get to it because I think a lot of this is on Kyle Shanahan and the way that he called this game. But it's just weird to watch. Again, Jeff Wilson, 7 carries, 25 yards with that fumble. Terrible. On a short yardage down, I shit you not. I don't understand why Kyle doesn't learn from this. Do not give the ball to Tevin Coleman. If you need a 3rd and 1, do not give the ball to Tevin Coleman. Okay? We've seen it. Tevin Coleman, 4 rushes, 3 yards. Why are you not playing TDP? Why are you not playing Jordan Mason? You know what these other 2 dudes are. When you saw that Jeff Wilson didn't have it, bring another dude in. Because obviously, you weren't worried about urgency, and that was readily apparent in that fourth quarter, particularly on that second to last drive that you got absolutely dick out of. It's I don't know what's going on with Kyle, but he has looked like a bad budget version of himself all season. And this offense cannot sustain. Once again, the 49ers produced nothing in a second half. It's pathetic. This offense, what Kyle is supposed to be known for, has been terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not going to get any better. And, we talk about bounce back games. You talk about like putting a fight forward. Honestly, if the team plays like this, they're going to lose by 3 touchdowns next week to the Chiefs, who are going to be pissed off that they got beat by a Buffalo Bills team. And they're going to come out and they're going to be hunting for blood. And the 49ers have just chummed the water with their bullshit play, with Kyle's terrible coaching, with his terrible clock management, and the fact that I just don't understand what he's doing right now. He looks lost. He looks like he's on the tier of Cliff Kingsbury, and I really hate to say that because I know at his best he's much better than that, but he's been terrible lately, and this team is not going anywhere if he continues to coach like that.
Yeah, I know Colin Cowherd gets a lot of shit from 49ers fan, the way he's kind of gone about this whole Trey Lance thing. But I just want to say, he says one thing that I really agree with. And if you're an offensive coach and you come in, you have some time to get your defense set up. But the offense should be good relatively quickly because that's what you're known for. Kyle Shanahan, you are an offensive coach. And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, sixth year here with the 49ers, fifth or sixth year for sure. And these are players you've had for a long time. This is not Trey Lance still in there. He got hurt week 2. This is Jimmy Garoppolo, the quarterback you've had now for 4 years, if not 5. I really don't remember when they got him, but there's no excuses. This should be your offense. You've drafted all of these players. You developed all of these players. You signed all of these players. And the one game so far this year where we went into it knowing you're going to need to lean on the offense a little bit because the defense has just about everybody out. Next man up only works so much. When the next man up is not even in the NFL yet because he hasn't been drafted because everybody else is hurt. You need to lean on the offense, and you give me 14 points. 14 points. And again, like Matt said, you don't score in the second half at all. At all. It's almost mind-blowingly comically frustrating because it's like whatever will go wrong did. And that's exactly what happened Sunday morning in Atlanta. And just to top it off, we never see Jimmy accurately throw the ball down the field. And whenever he does, these wide receivers suddenly don't have hands. They suddenly just forget how to catch the ball. It's like, I understand the placement. Sure, maybe it could have been an inch or two better. If it hits you in the hands, catch the damn ball.
I know you're talking about the Ray McLeod pass. Ray like tripped over his own fucking feet. He was so excited. He's like, "Oh my God, Jimmy threw me a ball that I'm actually gonna be able to take to the house." And just it just didn't work out. And that really sucks too. But I will say this, people are pointing to Jimmy G's stat line overall and saying, like, look how good Jimmy was. He still left a ton of fucking food on the table. A ton of food on the table. And he does it every week. And I know that frustrates, Kyle Shanahan, and I know that gets into it. But he leaves a ton. And so it's Ray McLeod, it's Charlie Werner, it's some of these guys making mistakes. And it's just, there's no excuse for that. It's like you guys are waiting. I know you guys are waiting for Jimmy G, who's leaving all this food on the table. Y'all are the dogs, right? You're waiting for the owner to drop some scraps off the table to you. And then when he does, you just miss it. It's not a good way to win. And the whole team just looks out of sorts. The whole team looks like they're not disciplined, like they're not feeling whatever's going on. And that's a dangerous, dangerous game to play. Yeah. And they got to figure it out quick because it doesn't get any easier. Say what you will about the Chargers. They're a tough team. You're going to have to play them after you play Kansas City and have a bye week. There's going to be a lot of soul searching, I know some people on Twitter, I think it was Lombardi, that said they're like a game better than they were last year and only 14 points less or something like that. I can't remember if it was him or somebody else that put that out, but it's like, okay, but that team was 3-5 also. And you're looking at the next 2 games are going to be really, really tough. And you're going into a stretch of the season where it's not going to get any easier, particularly when your offense is so bad. So the Carolina game notwithstanding, you're looking at a 49ers team that, didn't score against the Bears, scored a little bit against Seattle, but, the defense played a huge part in that. Didn't really score, against the second loss of the season against Denver. That was an 11-10 game. Again, Carolina, fine, whatever you want to say that, but there was still a very close game late into the third quarter when that pick 6 happened. Yep. This is not a team that's built for jumping out on people and getting a huge lead. There are no home run hitters on this team. No, Brandon Ayuk, notwithstanding with his 2 touchdown half, he didn't really do anything in the second half, right? George Kittle looks like a shell of himself. You're going to look at the 8 catches for 83 yards and be like, dang, he was really good. But he caught like 4 passes on the final drive when they were, Atlanta was in prevent.
Yep.
Kittle looks bad. There was a pass that, and I want to give Jimmy credit. He pointed to the back of the end zone, right? If you're George Kittle, you better head to the fucking back of that pylon. And he didn't. He shallow cut the route. He flattened it out and then tried last second to get over the top. And it's just like, no, dude, you need to go to he's telling you, go to the back pylon.
Yeah.
So this team is having a huge issue. And it's just trade Drake Jackson in 2023 thirds for Burns defensive end. Hell no. Dude, Burns has like 3 sacks this year. He's not very good this year. And you got something in Drake Jackson. I believe Drake Jackson has a lot of talent. But yeah, you can't go into these games and play offense like this and expect to play well.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you right now, my for the preview, I'm gonna spoil my preview right now. I think it's gonna be Kansas City 38, 49ers 10 with the way they've been playing. You know what I'm saying? Like a 4-touchdown game because Patrick Mahomes is gonna be pissed, right? If Charvarius Ward can't go because of the groin, and we already lost Emmanuel Mosley, and we're counting on, obviously Jason Verrett hasn't come back. He's got soreness in his knee. So who are you going to throw out there? It's going to be Diamador Lenore and Dante Johnson. And the fact that Ambry Thomas can't get any run over Dante Johnson is extremely alarming. And so I don't know what's going on. I think this is a case of there's a point where Kyle has to be looked at and the team has to be looked at as a whole, and the way that they're conducting their offseason workouts and everything that leads to a lot of these injuries.
Yeah. So,
and beyond that, we'll talk about his coaching too in a minute, but there's a lot going on here that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, agreed. But a couple things I want to talk about. I've seen people asking, why can't George Kittle run the route that Charlie Warner's ran? Because George Kittle likely doesn't drop that. Why do you think it is that we have Ray McLeod and Charlie Warner running these deep routes when we have Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel? Why can't these ever be the guys that are down the field, Matt? Do you think they're being used to draw the defense in to allow the lesser known players to get open deep down the field?
Honestly, I've been watching a lot of George Kittle. I don't think he separates the way that he used to. He looks slow. He looks like later stage Rob Gronkowski. It looks like the injuries are catching up to him. He doesn't. Maybe that fucking big ass helmet he has is too heavy for his head, and he can't.
He looks like an eagle.
That helmet is atrocious. I hate that helmet so much.
I think Nick Bosa has the same one.
It does, but I hate that helmet. It looks dumb. Yeah. But I just don't think that he's as fast. I think that Ayuk is fast, and I think that Deebo has like underneath speed, but. Again, some of the times it's like if you have Kittle or any of those major 3 running the route beyond maybe not being as fast, you're looking at it as like maybe the defense is keying on those players, right? Like maybe those are the guys that you're going to pay attention to, and a Charlie Warner you're not paying as much attention to. And so the fact that Ray McLeod and Charlie Warner are open are because they're getting the ball, like they're not getting the ball as much, and they're not as much of a threat. See, I liked his helmet last year, the Speed Flex. I like the Speed Flex. That's great. That's a good helmet. I like that helmet. The one that he's got now, it looks like somebody just pasted a whale tail to the front of that thing.
I don't know what the hell this helmet is. I don't know what the point of it is.
Maybe it's to contain George Kittle's inflated sense of self. No, I mean, I know he's a team guy or whatever, but it's just like something's got to happen. Yeah, I know that it's to prevent concussions, but that helmet looks so dumb.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So the other thing I wanted to discuss is who checks the guy that checks everyone. When you are the one in charge, when you came into this position, knowing that you have control over who the general manager will be that gets hired, knowing that you have the final say over just about everything because the owner is so shell-shocked and so submissive into just giving whatever the hell you want because I finally want a good coach. I'm tired of being burned by the fans for not having good coaches. I'll give you anything. I'll give you whatever power you have. Now Kyle Shanahan has all that power and his shit's not working. Who is in a position to tell him your shit's not working? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a very tough position to be in.
And it just shows that John Lynch is more of a figurehead than he is an actual general manager. That Kyle Shanahan is essentially running unchecked, because your general manager should be able to go to your coach. Any good general manager should be like, hey, man, shit's not working. Some of the assistants, and I think part of the problem too is assistants, right? Like some of your assistant coaches should be able to step up and be like, hey, but who's going to be the one to do it? The only one with enough tenure to even attempt to do it from a historical perspective is Anthony Lynn and Bobby Turner. And I don't think that they're going to do it. I think in the past it's Saleh has enough gumption to do it, right? Mike McDaniels was enough of an off-kilter dude that like he wouldn't have thought about like the hierarchy of it or whatever, right? But Kyle does need people in his ear to say, hey, man, you gotta, this is that. And I think that part of what's going on is Kyle is just a stubborn dude and he has nobody but yes men around him.
Unfortunately, it seems like that. And it seems like, and I've said this in the chat or group chat before, what terrifies me is.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I gotta deal with this real quick. 24-9. Shut up. Every week, this fool.
It's so funny.
Shut up, dude. 24-9. You lost, bro.
What terrifies me is that we are what the Eagles were to Andy Reid. We're that to Kyle Shanahan. And I'm like 60% sure he's going to leave the 49ers and go to like the Titans. I don't know. Yeah, and be amazing. Be Andy Reid somewhere else because he was able to get all of his mistakes out while he was young here with the 49ers, learn his shit, go to another franchise, take those lessons that he learned and put them into effect. I really hope that's not the case. But, man, it's like every year we're so close, whether it's injuries, whether it's quarterback play, whether it's not having enough corners that are starting caliber in the NFL, whatever it is, it's always been so damn close to where it's like eventually the time's going to run out. It's going to hit zero. And what the 49ers got out of it is what they got out of it. I mean, I would have never thought when Harbaugh was here, when we had the great defense, when Colin Kaepernick was lighting it up, that would have only lasted, 2 to 3 years. So the 49ers got it right now, and they need to figure out a way to win right now, because if not, I don't know, man. It's just really scary to think about. It is. And hopefully Trey Lance comes in and solves that.
I mean, I hate to burst bubbles, but this team is not going to win a Super Bowl this year. I hope you guys are mentally prepared for that.
I can't see anyone beating Buffalo.
They don't have the juice. And that's the thing, right? Like the NFC is down. It's a down year for the NFC. So the 49ers have every shot to make the playoffs. And the 49ers could even get to the Super Bowl. But it's a murderer's row in the AFC. I mean, you got Buffalo, you got Kansas City. It's just it's the quality. I mean, even some of the other teams in the AFC that are like traditionally down, right? Like Baltimore, still very dangerous, right? The Jets are 4-2, but I'm not saying the Jets are going to get anywhere, but I mean, you're looking at a strong AFC. So I just don't see the 49ers getting by anybody in the AFC. NFC wide open, right? Because the Giants 5-1, that's crazy. I don't know if that's going to last. Green Bay and Tampa look terrible. I think that even though the Vikings are 5-1, but they look fraudulent. It's just, I don't know, man. It's a weird situation. Yeah. And I just think that the 49ers, this offense, I don't even know if you take out the defensive touchdowns, this offense has to be scoring like 16 points a game or something like that.
Sounds about right.
Be something real low.
Yeah. So one of the few bright spots was Brandon Ayuk. And I know he had 2 touchdowns early on. I think he finished with like 80 something yards, 2 touchdowns, essentially a breakout game. Why don't they go to Brandon Ayuk more, Matt? He's so damn good. He's so talented. He almost always makes somebody miss. He almost always catches the ball. I can't understand why they don't force feed him. Any idea why?
Because Jimmy Garoppolo leaves all the food on the table and doesn't feed the dogs. And Kyle is trying to make sure that each dog gets his portion and gets his meal, and Jimmy Garoppolo can't see the forest for the trees. I think that Brandon Ayuk is probably open on a lot of plays. I'd have to go back and look at, a lot of the tape. I just think that Jimmy's just not capable of reading the field enough. Again, like I said earlier with those interceptions, Jimmy Garoppolo is literally one of the only quarterbacks that I've seen that refuses to throw the ball out of bounds if he doesn't have something. He will force it every time.
Yeah.
And there's like Brett Favre forcing it. And then there's like, I'm just not very smart at forcing it. And they're close cousins, right? But Brett Favre had arm talent that defies logic, right? That dude could whiz the ball and did some amazing things that Jimmy Garoppolo just doesn't do. The coolest thing that I saw Jimmy do was that shovel pass. And
Yeah.
A shovel pass. Okay, that works, right? But again, if you're not reading the field, if you're not looking down the field, if you're not picking up on linebackers lurking underneath, if you're not willing to throw the ball away, then you're going to leave a lot of this stuff on the table. And that's what Jimmy does every single week.
Unfortunately, I mean, it really just, that's what it seems like. I mean, Brandon Ayuk would be a 1,500-yard receiver on just about like any other competent team. I mean, maybe not 1,500. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Well over 1,000.
I mean, 1,000-yard receiver for sure. And he has the capability here, but I don't think it's going to happen,
Again, with the running back situation, 7 carries was the leading rusher, and Jeff Wilson. It's just, that's not winning football. It's not 49ers football. Again, just like I said earlier with the Falcons stats, if you told me going into Sunday that Jimmy Garoppolo would throw the ball 42 times and the leading rusher would have carried 7 times, I would know already that's a loss. Like you don't need to be Nostradamus to predict that. And again, like you said, Matt, the fumble early on was so bad, because that game could have been a 1-score game the rest of the second half. If it wasn't for that score, it would have been 14-21. Maybe the 49ers played a little differently. What was extremely frustrating. Go ahead.
And that first drive, by the way, was just really bad. That play, whatever the opening script was bad, because remember, the 49ers punted on their first possession.
Their first couple, I think, right?
I think the first possession was a punt, and the second possession was the fumble that was brought back.
That's right. Okay.
But it's just, man, it's just terrible, I don't understand. And again, those are supposed to be your best drives, right? Those are the ones that typically the 49ers look the best on. So I just think that, and again, for, there were a couple throws, again, that Jimmy makes every week that you're just like, man, that's so bad. But I will say, in general, I thought that Jimmy looked a little bit better than he has in the last couple of weeks.
Agreed.
He was at least looking down the field. He was at least, looking to make some throws. That chart that you threw up, that Leo Luna put out on Twitter, that's a weird one, man. The fact that he did not throw the ball past the line of scrimmage to his left, really weird. And by the way, the fact that he didn't throw the ball 10+ yards past the line of scrimmage anywhere except between the numbers, which is very Jimmy Garoppolo-like, by the way, was just wild. And let's not forget that there were 2 or 3 really big throws that were called back. One to Ayuk in the second half. There was one to Kittle as well, I believe, that was called back. There were a couple of big plays that were left out there because of penalties as well. It's just overall, between clock management, between the injury situation that can be mitigated through proper conditioning and really running your practices better, to, these penalties, which seem to be worse this year than they've been in the past. I just think the 49ers have a little bit of a coaching problem. And I just think that somebody's got to talk to Kyle. Kyle needs some help, whether that's like, somebody just trying to help him out, whether it's Anthony Lynn stepping in and giving him a different perspective. Somebody has to take the initiative, because what Kyle's doing right now is not working. And he just looks like he is frustrated and not super motivated and very confused. And it's not a good look for the team.
Yeah, it really isn't. And the whole team seems that same way. And I want to touch on what you said earlier, where Jimmy Garoppolo kind of played well. I mean, he had a couple of dumb passes, a couple of mistakes for sure. But for the most part, I would argue he played well enough to win. And this is one of the rare occasions where it was not because of Jimmy Garoppolo that the 49ers lost this game. He did not have enough help from his surrounding cast. And I almost rarely say that, but that kind of is how it played out. I mean, he threw the ball down the field 0 for 3. How many of those deep down the field passes hit his receivers? It really is unfortunate how it shaped out, because I know it's kind of not similar, but it reminds me of Anchorman when he's like, even the guy who can't think says something. It's like, even Jimmy's throwing downfield and accurate passes, and you guys can't even catch them. Like, come on, that's the very least you can do. It was extremely frustrating. And like you said, once the penalties started going on, I could already tell it was going to be that type of day. We touched on BA. Okay. Oh no, before that, you touched on the atrocious clock management in that last drive. And if I remember correctly, they got the ball at like the 1, an 8-minute drive that goes, I don't know, 60 yards down the field, right? They're down 2 scores. What the hell was going on, Matt? Why is Kyle Shanahan calling plays like it's a 3-point game? They don't have to get the ball back. What was the mentality? I mean, I really don't get it.
I don't know. And it's so funny because you contrast that with the last drive where Kyle finally woke up and was like, wait a second. Oh, we gotta go, right? And it's like they're moving the ball down the field and they're doing no huddle. They should have been doing that from the beginning. And it was just, watching it was so frustrating. It's just like, man, these are like, they're not taking any shots. They're not going towards the side. I mean, even on that last drive, and some of this is on the players too, right? They were running towards the middle of the field. It's like, get out of bounds, dude. The clock will stop, right? You're trying to get an extra 2 yards at the cost of an extra 30 seconds that you don't have. And so, but that's part of coaching too. You should have your guys prepared. Hey man, like when you run 2-minute every week, just like get the fuck out of bounds. It's super frustrating. Like I'm sure, the Rams fans are frustrated with the fact that Matthew Stafford has 8 picks this year. Shut up, Jim Everett, Chris.
Yeah, and there was one. I think what I saw I needed to know, at least from Kyle Shanahan's mentality and where he was. But there was one play where Deebo Samuel, I think, got a horrible spot. He totally got the first down, went above the line. They ruled it short, called it 3rd and 1. And apparently they called, from what I saw, Jimmy probably got the play call. He had to go over to Kyle and he's like, Kyle, it's 3rd down. It's 3rd down. Like he wasn't even tuned in enough to know that they did not give him the first down.
Not you, Chris Hansen. Chris Everett over here.
49ers Throwback says, hi, Matt. Why didn't Kyle call a timeout in the 2-minute drill?
Because he was asleep at the wheel yesterday. That's what it looked like. He was unprepared and asleep at the wheel. And the whole purpose of staying on the East Coast for these 2 back-to-back East Coast road trips that they've had the last couple of years is to be dialed in for the game. And Kyle looked like he was anything but.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch your coach and being like, you have to scratch your head and you look at your friends and you look around. I mean, I was in Vegas. I was at that super sweet like stadium swim or whatever. And it was dope, dude. And
looked super sweet.
It was super cool. And there were 49er fans there. And we were all looking at each other like, what the fuck is Kyle doing today? I don't understand. Like, what is going on? The play calling was weird. The situational football was bad. And I don't know, man. It's so crazy.
We've said previously that the week 1 loss to the Bears, the week 3 loss to the Broncos. It was week 3, right? Yeah. Was the worst loss in Kyle Shanahan's tenure. This one's got to be a close second, right? If not,
I mean,
worse.
This one's just, I just think that this has been filled with a lot of bad losses.
Yeah.
The 3 losses this year have been pretty. Week 1 against the Bears, notwithstanding, because of how bad the rain was. But even then, it's just, this season has just not looked great. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. And I actually like this from 49ers Throwback. In his 15 seasons, and I'm sure this is including as a coordinator too, his offense has been in the bottom half of the league in points scored 10 times. 49ers have 142 turnovers in 87 regular season games. There is some of this that I think is in reverence, to his father, that I think he needs to give up the ghost on. I think his running game is really tired.
Yeah.
Like it's not super effective. And again, like I said, I think his passing plays are actually some of the more inspired things that he does, and he just doesn't have the quarterback play to do it. And he's loyal to certain players that he likes to a fault. He needs to be a boss and not a friend. And I understand that Kyle is like a player's coach. But there are coaches around the league that could be player coaches, but still will drop the hammer when it's time. And I don't mean drop the hammer in a way that's Kyle shows frustration or Kyle gets, a little case of the red ass or whatever. It seems like Kyle just gets mad, but doesn't coach. And when I say drop the hammer, Kyle needs to let these guys know exactly why this is a mistake in a way that's going to build them. And I just don't see that. They do the same thing over and over and over, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it's Tevin Coleman running right into the teeth of the defense, whether it's Jeff Wilson Jr., who can't seem to do much beyond one or two good games or good plays, whether it's George Kittle continuously getting hurt because he can't slow his own self down. These are all coaching things that you need to, like when Kyle says, man, I'm scared of George, like just let him go because he goes 110%. It's like, well, that's on you to teach him to shift gears, to teach him, hey, man, you don't have to, you need to think of the long game, not just the short game. All this stuff is an issue, and it's all compounding this year when the 49ers are yet again hit by injuries. And they're hit by injuries because Kyle will just keep running this team into a brick wall, expecting a different result. And it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agreed. Since we're talking about Kyle, this was a very, very eye-opening stat that I'm going to pull up here for Alex Simon on Twitter. Since Kyle Shanahan took over as head coach in 2017, the 49ers have been trailing by 7 or more points entering the fourth quarter 24 times. They have won 0 times in those instances. The largest after third quarter deficit they've overcome, 4 points from December 21st, 2019 versus the Rams. 24 times they've had a 7-point or more deficit going into the fourth quarter, and they're 0-24. I mean, we give Matt Rule shit for being 0 and whatever when another team scores 17 points. This is equally as embarrassing. You can't score a touchdown when you're down at least a touchdown. I mean, oh my God.
I think that's a lot of that's limitation on personnel, particularly Jimmy Garoppolo and the quarterbacks that they've had. I think that's a big part of it, because the fact of the matter is, besides these, what that tells you is they've won a lot of games when they go into halftime with a lead, and Kyle's able to take the ball out of the quarterback's hands. When you got to put it into the hands of the quarterback like they did today, bad things happen, including the 2 Jimmy Garoppolo interceptions that really can hamstring a team. So, I think that's part of it. But at the same time, you have to absolutely take into account who's picking these players too. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo was foisted upon Kyle, and it seems like he, I don't know, may or may not have wanted Trey Lance. But at the end of the day, the coach has to do a better job with what he's working with. So,
yeah, that's kind of like my main takeaway from this is like, you are an offensive genius. You're supposed to be thought of as such, right? You can't scheme up a touchdown, Kyle, when you need it the absolute most. I understand the personnel. I understand the injuries, but God damn, you can't get, and when he does, the players can't execute it, which in my defense, I think ultimately still falls on the head coach. If your players can't execute the plays that you've drawn up in practice for all week, maybe you're not practicing them well enough. I don't know. I really don't know how that works.
Right.
These practice fields, but
right. Well, here, and Submit says this is the first time Jimmy receivers drop dime passes. Listen, dude, drops happen every week in the NFL, right? But at the same time, quarterbacks don't throw picks every week, and it seems like Jimmy Garoppolo does that. So you have to take the drops. That happens. The best wide receivers are going to drop passes. That's just part of it, right? The best quarterback's going to miss a little bit. But it's do you miss big or do you miss small? And Jimmy Garoppolo tends to miss big in a lot of areas. So you could say it's just one thing, but like that pass to Ray McCloud, that's a rarity. That's once every 6 weeks or 7 weeks for Jimmy Garoppolo to throw that pass and have it look like that. So it's easy to just be like, oh, man, well, Jimmy wasn't the problem. Jimmy consistently is a problem. And then you compound that with the receivers dropping the ball.
which I would also like to push back on Jim Everett, say Jimmy G ended the myth. He can't throw deep. It's Kyle and the 49ers don't have elite receivers to catch the ball. Throwing a couple of somewhat accurate passes deep down the field in one game does not overcome the substantial amount of evidence showing that he cannot accurately throw deep over the past 4 to 5 years we had him. And I strongly push back that the 49ers don't have talented enough receivers to catch the ball down the field. So Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, all of them likely catch these balls with a talented quarterback throwing them down the field. So just wanted to push back on that. Another area that at least we could take away feeling somewhat good about was Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks continues to shine. One of the rare bright spots on the offensive line, posted his first clean sheet per Dave Lombardi. 0 pressures allowed. First time in his NFL career. And the 49ers left guard Aaron Banks has yet to allow a sack this season. Does that surprise you at all, Matt?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know. Everything about this team is surprising me right now, if I'm being honest. It's just some people are playing above their station. Other people are playing below their station. And, injuries mixed in between. You don't know who's going to step in and do a great job. You don't know who's going to step in and be a dumpster fire. At the end of the day, we should have high expectations for this team, no matter who's out there playing. And there are times where they go out and they take care of business. There are other times where they don't. But I will say this, that for as good as some people have played and as bad as some other people have played, this team has not been on the same page once this season. So they're leaving a lot of plays, points, whatever out on the field. And it's disappointing because, again, like you're talking about people coming in unexpectedly playing well, but they're not getting the support from the people that you do expect to play well. And that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Well said. 49ers throwback with some quotes from the post-game press conference. The key is that you can't come up short on that and expect to the ball and get the ball twice. Shanahan said, we're not going to panic when we feel like we have 2 more possessions.
That's for the 4th down play, right? Yeah.
Lack of urgency in the 4th quarter. You have a question from Anthony Colbreth. Hey, Matt, question. Would you trade Kyle for Burns and Brown from the Panthers? Promote D'Amico Ryans to head coach. Use Anthony Lynn as the OC. Get a different OC. That would benefit Trey. I believe Derek Brown, offensive or defensive tackle from the Panthers.
This is like so outside the realm of what is possible that I don't even really know how to respond to this. I mean, if this was offered, but I don't know, like what, because what do you do after Burns and Brown come over here and then Armstead recovers from his injury and then you got Drake Jackson and then you got this guy and you got that guy. Again, this is a line that runs however many deep or whatever. I think that this is like, I'm not saying that Kyle can't be recovered or that like Kyle is just all of a sudden a shit coach. I just think he's having a very rough stretch, so this, I don't know, this is a little bit too much like fantasy booking for me. I just think that Kyle needs to make some adjustments. Otherwise that seat under his ass is to start to get warm.
Yeah, I agree.
This quote is hilarious.
49ers throwback, self-inflicted wounds were just the story of the day. Jimmy Garoppolo said, those are correctable, but you can't have as many as we had.
From the guy who has never corrected any of his short sights at all. He still makes the same terrible plays. He still can't hit the same throws outside the numbers. It's the same shit with him. And then he's like, no, we can fix these. When, dude? You've had 10 years to fix them.
It's almost laughable. It really is almost laughable. I saw that. I think it was Mayoko tweeted that Mooney Ward is day-to-day with that groin injury and that Nick Bosa and Trent Williams might play Sunday versus the Chiefs. I don't know. Kyle said he feels a lot better than he did last Sunday going into next Sunday.
I seem to remember him saying that week too about George Kittle too, and then lo and behold, George Kittle didn't play.
Fair enough.
I think you wait until the injury report comes out.
Yeah. Ooh, Nathaniel Hackett says Russell Wilson suffered a hamstring injury tonight in the Monday Night Football game. Well, we'll see how that shapes out. Going through the comments here for Niners Throwback. Hey, Zach, it's embarrassing. Geno Smith and Cooper Rush balling and put stats with their coaches. Kyle can't.
I don't know that Cooper Rush was balling the other day. He threw 3 picks. Yeah.
Yeah. But in his defense, first time he's played pretty poorly in the 5 game stretch that he's filled in for Dak. Yeah, man. I don't know. I really don't know what to say for this offense. Again, like I said, the one game where they went into the game knowing they were needing to count on the offense, you get 14 points and they get shut out in the fourth quarter. And on top of all of that, they gift the opponent.
Second half.
Yeah, second half. Sorry.
The entire second half.
And they gift the opponent 7 points again. Gosh, it's just like so frustrating when the offense is giving up points.
Well,
I mean, it's
and
even
really
worse than the safety,
right? Because the second Jimmy Garoppolo interception, I believe they went down and scored on that drive.
You're right. Yep. You're right. Jim Everett, 49ers were missing Bosa and some other pieces. More like the entire starting defense, not to play excuses, but at some point, next man up doesn't work when there's no longer a man there. When the man just got signed on Tuesday.
But that's why you hope that your offense can pick up the slack, and they can't. So that's the issue.
Yeah. We got a super chat for Niners Throwback. Hey, Zach, what can you say? Javon Kinlaw is done. Placed on IR since the last time we've talked, Matt. At least 4 games he'll miss. He had already missed 2 prior to that. That's not looking good, right? I mean, this was the knee that they got the scope done, the full reconstruction clean out, and here we are 6 weeks into the year, technically 4 because he couldn't play 2 weeks ago, and it's already bothering him. So did the 49ers just completely mess up that pick when a bunch of other teams reportedly completely had him off of their board due to this knee?
Well, let's be fair, because he injured it worse in that season. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? But the fact of the matter is the knee was a concern at some point or another, and that's why I always say, with the Zach Wilson thing earlier, where it's like, oh, you could repair the meniscus or you can trim it. I would always go for the repair. I don't care if you're going to miss the whole season, because guess what? That cartilage will be there for you later on in life, right? Like, you got to play the long game. And with a lot of these knee injuries, they're shortcutting to get them back out onto the field, and that's going to have consequences. We've seen it. And listen, let's not pretend like when Javon Kinlaw's out on the field that he's not a disruptor, right? He's very good against the run. He's very good at collapsing that interior offensive line back in the lap of a quarterback and forcing him to the outside where Bosa and others can, get a hold, and it helps Bosa out, to say that, he's a bust or he's this or he's that. I give people the bust label based on their play, not on their health, because a lot of things are beyond your control. I mean, a blast from the past name that Jim Everett will know, Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was an amazing running back, had a knee injury, and that knee just prevented it. It just acted up, prevented him from being, fulfilling his potential and having a career as long as he could have. That doesn't mean that he's a bust, because he was a great player when he was on the field. And I think that Kinlaw, when he's on the field, you're holding him up to DeForest Buckner, and he's not going to get the sack numbers that Buckner gets because that's not his game. At the same time, he's a good run stuffer. And that doesn't make him a bust. It just means that much like, Greg Oden in the NBA, much like Zion Williamson in the NBA, right? The body just is not holding up for you. It's not meant to give you a long career. You're injury prone. I think that the injury prone label is very much applicable to Javon Kinlaw because it's the same knee. This is the 3rd or 4th time with that knee. I think that knee is going to cost him his career at this point.
Oof. We have another super chat from Joayo56. Let me redo that again. I can hope that we beat the Rams 4-4, still lead the division. Hopefully, man. Hopefully. For Throwback says, Matt, sometimes players' bodies give up. I think Kinlaw's body's given up.
That knee looks like it might be, for sure.
Jim Everett, Todd Gurley injury cost us a Super Bowl. He was the best running back in the NFL.
Bro, that was the worst Super Bowl I've ever seen. That Patriots-Rams Super Bowl, 13-3. Like, talk about a yawn fest. Cure for insomnia, that Super Bowl.
Yeah. Can you touch on this, Matt? Because I kind of don't get it. And I just had a concussion recently. But Talanoa Hufanga passed concussion protocol twice on Sunday, but didn't pass on Monday. So he's officially now in the protocol.
Yeah.
Can they be delayed?
I mean, certain things can be delayed. And then the concussion protocol changes, I think, based on like how far out you are. They clear you each step of the way. And again, inflammation takes time. Symptoms sometimes take time to manifest. So this is not super surprising to me. It just sucks because this is another instance of where you look at the concussion protocol and you're just like, man, it's still just not good enough, dude. Like, and this is, by the way, this is after the changes that were made because of the Tua situation, and Hufanga came back in to the game. You know, after he left and was hurt early, he came back into the game. Yeah. So it's unfortunate, and I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it is strange. He went out almost immediately, if I remember correctly, on the opening drive on defense. And then he kind of came back in, and come to find out, he apparently suffered a concussion, but was able to pass the tests. Maybe the tests just aren't good enough.
I mean, and you know, the first one might have been, you know, not, you know, it could have been the subsequent, right? Like maybe, okay, so the first one, you're not really going to have issues. It could have been a number of subconcussive hits to the head, or you know, type of plays or whatever that just built up, and then that also can change how things manifest too. Everything's going to manifest differently. The same person could have the same injury twice, and it's going to manifest in a different way. So hopefully he's able to make it back. But I mean, at the same time, I just feel like it's better to be safe than sorry. And we saw what happened with Tua when a team tried to bring somebody back too fast. In my opinion, if it was up to me, again, this is as a medical professional, I would not let Talanoa Hufanga play against the Chiefs. Just, I mean, give him that week off. You have the bye week, then you have the Chargers. Like, bring him back for the Chargers.
Yeah. Jim Everett, Craze being misused by Kyle. I dial up deep cross slants like McVay does with Van Jefferson. In Kyle's defense, I believe Danny Gray was sick this week.
By the way, I just want to say I'm way off on the schedule. We play the Rams after the Chiefs.
And then we have the bye.
Yeah.
Got it.
Speaking, I must have been concussed from all the alcohol I consumed in Vegas.
But yeah, I believe Danny Gray was sick. I saw a lot of people upset that he wasn't the one out there for the Ray McCloud deep pass. I think he was sick, but hey, I agree with you, Jim. I think even if he was healthy, he probably wouldn't have been out there because Kyle Shanahan, for some reason, it was like as soon as Trey Lance went down, Danny Gray, pick a seat on the bench. You're not going in anymore.
But then he puts up this bullshit with Van Jefferson. Dude, Van Jefferson hasn't even been on the field this year.
I was going to let that slide. I
can't. This motherfucker be like Van Jefferson every day. Every time. I'm like, well, you're coming into a 49er and just Van Jefferson. Yeah, you could dial up deep cross slants for Van Jefferson, but Matthew Stafford's going to throw a pick.
49ers throwback. Rams lost their right guard trying to trade Cam Akers.
They lost their left tackle too.
Yep. So apparently the Rams, Niners, and Bills, if you believe these reports, are at least somewhat in on Christian McCaffrey. Take it with a grain of salt. Niners, for some reason, always get tied to every player.
The report came out and said that the Panthers were asking for multiple first-round picks for McCaffrey, which is preposterous. They're not getting that shit.
No. I saw our guy, Dieter Kurtenbach, friend of the show, say, just because you guys overpaid doesn't mean we have to. And that shit's hilarious. All right, we're going to be wrapping up. But before we do, we got to thank today's sponsor, which is MyBookie. Guys, you know football. You pick winners all the time. Why not get paid for them at MyBookie? You can bet single game spreads, money lines, or parlay multiple picks together to increase your payout. They got low contest entry fees and over $500,000 to be won. So make it so you don't have to be a pro gambler to have some fun. You might be asking, Zach, where the hell do I go? How do I start this? It's super simple. All you got to do is visit Mybookie.ag and use promo code HIVE, as in 49ers Hive, on your first deposit of or more to secure a double deposit bonus. They will match it all the way up to $1,000. That's promo code Hive, Hive. Get your first deposit match dollar for dollar all the way up to $1,000. MyBookie is a proven sportsbook that makes it simple to bet and simple to win. So make this season your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. Shout out to MyBookie for sponsoring the show. Matt, final thoughts on this game?
So first, before we get to that, this is the second time you've done that ad read and you've completely digitized for that whole thing.
Son of a bitch, man. YouTube is screwing us. YouTube is screwing us. I don't know what it is.
You're delayed, brother. I don't know.
It doesn't even say that I have bad connection.
You got to upgrade your Fisher Price internet, my man.
It says it's good. It says it's strong.
Oh, I know. You're good, and you're good now, dude. It's so crazy. Like the sound.
This is the second time it's done.
Second time, yeah. Final thoughts on the game. The 49ers were much like that ad read, complete dog shit. I don't think they can. I'm very pessimistic. This season can get away from them real quick. You're at home against KC, but they're coming off of a tough loss to, Terralone's Wine, 81 Vino. Are they a sponsor anymore, Zach?
Technically, yes.
Okay. Go get 81 Vino. Promo code Hive if it still works. Nice label on that wine, by the way. I love the texture on the wine. Anyway, again, you're going against a Kansas City team that's coming off of a tough loss, right? A very hard fought loss against the Buffalo Bills team. There's a lot of things going on with that that are going to motivate the Chiefs to come back. I know that there were a lot of suspect calls. There were a lot of things. Brittany Mahomes was online. Oh, the refs, whatever. There's going to be problems. But you have to come out and be strong, even if you don't win that game, right? For the moral boost, because then you have to go to LA, or it's like we like to call it Levi's South, and you have to go against the Rams in LA, and then you go into your bye week, and after the bye week, you get the Chargers in prime time. Yeah. This is a tough stretch. After that, you get the Arizona Cardinals, who, lost Marquise Brown. Not a huge loss, but they traded for Robbie Anderson today, which is like whatever. But the big thing is that they're getting DeAndre Hopkins back, and that's gonna be a difference right there. It's a tough stretch of games. The later half of the season, I think it's a little bit easier. I don't think the New Orleans Saints are particularly good, even though that defense is pretty nice. Miami's a tough game, particularly if Tua's back, just because Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and we really need to watch out for Jalen Waddle. I was watching the game yesterday, and it looked like he dislocated his shoulder. With the amount of time that it's going to be before we play them, he'll probably be back by then. And then you get Tampa Bay, and then you're at Seattle, which, Geno Smith looks better than Russell Wilson this year. It's a tough stretch. They're winnable games, but they really have to come out and be on fire. So, it's a tough one. Also, I just want to put this out there. I appreciate you, Ace, bro. I appreciate you. Fuck the Dodgers. Go Padres. I can't even tell you how excited I was for that. I was stoked for that. But anyway, yeah, it's a tough stretch. They definitely have to come out and improve on if they look like they did against Atlanta, it's going to be a long rest of the season for this team.
Yeah. Agreed. They need to find an identity on offense, especially when they're behind. They need to show that they can actually compete and play from behind. If not, it's going to be a very, very ugly season. By the way, Ace, bro, I just saw like 20 minutes ago that you had DM'd me talking about the Niners. It was stuck in my requests. I'm not ignoring you. I'll get back to you. Sometimes they just get stuck in that like message request and you don't get notified for some reason. Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys hanging with us this Monday night. It was a shit game. Apparently a shit ad read because YouTube hates us every time we try and make some money. But that's all right. We're still here. We're still rocking with the Niners. Jim Everett, thanks for tuning in, even though you're a Rams fan as well. We'll be back later this week to preview arguably the biggest game, toughest game of the year so far, maybe not even so far, maybe just period, against the Chiefs. So we'll put that out on our Twitter. You could follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. That way you don't miss a thing show-wise. Hit like, hit subscribe. Matt, go ahead and carry us out. Everybody have a good night.
Yeah, real quick. Crow, thank you for coming in. And I just had to look at the schedule real quick. After week 8 at the Rams, the 49ers don't have another away game until week 15 at Seattle, and then only one more at Las Vegas. Wow. So the 49ers are at home for all but 3 of the rest of their games. So 3 out of 11 on the road. That means 8 at home. The 49ers have to take care of business at home.
Yeah. That's a good stat.
Absolutely.
Hopefully they can.
And that's a good schedule break for the 49ers, I think. Again, there's no place like home, and hopefully the 49ers can, really, really pick up and improve on what was going on. And speaking of no place like home, I just want to thank you guys for always coming in, making the show fun. We love having you here. It's been a tough one. Thank you for joining us late on a Monday night. We would have liked to come live after the game, but again, circumstances, aka me taking a vacation, didn't allow that to happen. But we will be live after the Kansas City Chiefs game, and I hope you join us then. So with that being said, thank you as always for joining us, and until next time, go Niners.